conventional winemaking, there's a lot of shit conventional wines, but there's also some really great, fantastic conventional wines, as is with natural wine. There's a lot of shit natural wine, but somewhere in the middle is harmony for both styles. So I think we're all we know where we need to go. I think there's a few people making excuses for shit wine at the moment and using that term as the selling point.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Real Wine People. Today my guest is Brendon Keys, also known as BK, from BK Wines in the Adelaide Hills. I've known BK for a few years now, and our conversation today over a bottle of wine stretches from how he and Kirsty met, to how they started BK Wines, to where they've been and where they're headed to next. And in between, some discussions on French conspiracy theories, a little bit about some winemaking, whether it's skin contact, pétillant, and the differences in concrete and concrete eggs, along with many other things. Thanks to everyone so far who has rated the podcast and sent me feedback. It's very welcome, especially on how to fix our sound quality, which we're working on pretty hard, and who to interview next. Show notes and links to everything we spoke about are available, or is available, at realwinepeople.com. I hope you enjoy this episode with BK. A little bit of red. This is me pretending I know what I'm doing.
So, okay.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Cool.
We just got to have it close enough so we can still drink our glass of wine.
Yeah, exactly. Just push it out of the way. Drink the wine.
Okay.
Bring it back in. I feel so professional. All right.
I'll open that.
Cool. So BK's going to open some wine here in Basket Range. I've done 4 U-turns again to try and find the driveway. But up at BK's house from BK Wines, we're just going to have a chat about stuff and things. How are you today, BK?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah,
Nice.
Had a pretty nice morning hanging out with Archer.
Doing some skating.
Yeah, and Kirsty and Remy have gone down to the friends at Malang at the lake for the day.
Nice.
So they got to have a day together and we get to have a day together. It's kind of nice.
Cool.
All right, you just got to wrestle this cork.
All right. What are we drinking?
Some Beaujolais.
Oh, fancy stuff.
I thought Beaujolais was cheap.
It used to be, I think.
Or was that just George de Boeuf?
That's what we used to get, that's right. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate.
Cool. Awesome.
So, I guess start talking about maybe a bit about your history, how you got into wine, where you're from originally,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
So, from New Zealand.
Yeah, so from New Zealand, how did I get into wine? It's funny because I was thinking about this question the other day, and Kirsty's been on that full journey with me since I got into wine.
Right.
Our journey of drinking wine started with drinking cask wine with lemonade on the front lawn.
Nice. The lady in a boat, the old cooler bar.
Yeah. What is it? Blue Nun or something like that from New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
Which was Muller Thurgau, I think.
Nice.
Sweet Muller Thurgau.
All the good stuff.
But
And that was in...
That was in New Zealand in my hometown of Whakatane.
Yep.
And at that time, I was doing 3 different jobs.
Right.
I just finished the ski season. I was unemployed, so the Dole office gave me a job at Briscoe's, which is kind of like Bunnings. I was chefing in a restaurant under the table, DJing and also bartending. So,
right.
So it was. So I had heaps of cash.
Yeah.
But no real commitment to anything until I met Kirsty.
Right. You whipped you into shape. How did you meet her?
Yeah, at the pub.
Nice.
Classic.
Were you working behind the bar?
No. I just met her one night. Actually, I was helping a friend out in his skate shop, and she came in and brought a pair of shoes off me.
Really?
And then happened to be at the pub that weekend, and I introduced myself to her. And
was she wearing the shoes?
Yeah, exactly. A pair of black globes, I remember.
Nice. And And Kirsty's from the same hometown?
Yeah, Kirsty's originally from Rotorua, but then grew up in Te Puke, which is it's kind of known for kiwi fruit, so about 40 minutes down the road.
Cool.
But so she was a nurse and she was a student nurse.
Yep.
So I hooked up with the student nurse.
You would have been a hero to all your mates.
But it's funny because we were together for 6 months and moved to London together.
Wow.
We thought we'll just kind of go for it. If it's going to work, it's going to work. It's kind of make or break in a relationship. And we moved to London. I didn't have any money, so she had to lend me $500 to put in my bank account to prove so I could get in the country.
Nice.
So I could get my working visa.
Yep.
And then we got to London and I didn't want to go cooking, and Kirsty wasn't sure what we were going to do, and we didn't really want to hang around in London. It was just so hectic and everybody was doing these shit jobs for no money.
Yeah.
So we moved to Cambridge.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've been there.
And Kirsty took a job in the haematology ward, and I took a job driving tractors.
Really? On what sort of farm?
We did grain, peas, and potatoes.
Awesome.
So I think I worked like 13 hours a day for £3.75 an hour, but I think it was also the most money I'd ever saved.
Right.
Because we just couldn't get any time off.
Yep.
But from there, we the owner of the farm, his best mate, had a ski chalet in the French Alps.
Right.
And we wanted to go and do a season in the French Alps, so we took a job working for them, and it was a pretty sweet deal.
So where was the mountain?
Val d'Isere.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, so it was.
And what was your job? Just ski lifts and.
So they had 3 chalets, and what it was chalets for friends and family, but the problem is the friends and family weren't respecting it. So they wanted someone there to kind of look after the place.
Yeah.
So I suggested, well, since we're there, should we cook and do a set menu and then kind of make it a bit more fun and a bit more structured? And the owners thought that was a great idea. So what Kirsty and I would do was write like a weekly menu, and then we just kind of did theme nights.
Right.
So one night was Mexican, one was Italian, one was fondue.
Yeah.
And it would be like tequila slammers. It would be kind of
nice
fondue and genepi kind of.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
French spirit, so it was good. And it turned out that I think we were there for 6 or 7 months, and we only had 6 weeks of guests.
Oh, really?
So the rest of the time we just snowboarded every day.
And just you'd be Mexican nights, you'd have to do tequila slammers with Kirsty and.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was a funny situation because we were cooking the food and they were there. They needed to include buy our food.
Right.
And when we had no guests, we got paid more money. It was to cover our groceries.
I see. Okay.
So
you just live like kings.
We lived like kings, and a friend of ours, Monica, was running the bar down the road. Occasionally I'd DJ there, so we'd get free drinks.
Why did you ever leave?
I know. You look back and you're like, fuck, why did we leave? But, it's not a real world.
Yeah.
But my sister went back the next year, and then my god sister went 2 years after that. So I kind of kept it in the family for as long as I could, so Kirsty and I could still go out and stay.
Nice.
But they owned Majestic Wines in London.
Oh, okay. The people who own the chalet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they had something like 90 retail stores.
Right.
And so they said, what are you going to do after the season? And I said, I don't know. And they said, well, do you want to come and work for us? So I went and worked for them.
In a store?
In a store.
Yep.
Just started off, working on the floor, and then ended up kind of assistant manager. But it was an awesome introduction into wine.
Sure.
As in, they had...
What year was this?
That was 2002. We had the Millennium in Val d'Isere.
Yeah.
And then after the season, we moved back to London.
Right.
So that was kind of, in mid kind of start of 2000, halfway through kind of the year. And then I went back and sold wine, and it was awesome because they had so many good producers and there was so much opportunity, and they always had a really good tasting budget.
Yeah.
So because they only sold by a case at a time, you were obliged to open a bottle for people to try before they purchased a case.
Right. And where was this store, in central London?
So we were in Belham.
Oh, okay.
I started in Notting Hill.
Yeah.
And then moved to Belham and Clapham Junction.
Right.
So we just lived on one side of the Clapham Common.
Mm-hmm.
I just walked across the common every day to work, which was great.
Yeah, cool. And so, okay, so you were there for how many years with Majestic?
I think on and off was like for a year and a half.
Yeah, cool.
So by then I'd done my working visa, and then Kirsty and I decided we were going to go to Canada.
Right.
So we both got our 1-year working visas in Canada.
That's the under 30 one?
Yeah. My 25th birthday I was in Val d'Isere.
Right.
Walked to Italy for the day to snowboard in Italy.
Yeah, get your lunch, espresso and a panini, and
and then back into Val d'Isere.
Oh, so good.
But so we got to Canada, and Kirsty's auntie and uncle had been living on a yacht. So they'd sailed around the world for close to 20 years.
Really?
And finished in Vancouver Island.
Right.
And we had an opportunity to stay on the yacht, and it was just so cold. We're just like, oh, fuck this, we're out of here. And the other thing that happened is that I thought, I'll get a job in a liquor store or kind of work out something in wine. But it was all government run, so it was...
Oh, of course.
Pretty hard and pretty uninteresting.
Yeah.
And also Kirsty's registration, they only did it twice a year, and the paperwork from London didn't show up for the first time. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna have to wait 6 more months before she could apply again.
Right.
So we just like, oh fuck it, let's just go snowboarding, have a holiday, and then head back to New Zealand. Right. So we just went snowboarding for a couple of months.
So up there, Whistler?
No, we went up to Calgary, did Fernie, we did like 6 or 7 resorts.
Wow.
Over that period of time, which was awesome. And then, then we were like, back to New Zealand. Shit, we've spent all our money. What are we going to do? And similar, I thought, I'll try and find in wine retail. And couldn't really find anything interesting. So I did a bit of research and found a viticulture and winemaking course in Gisborne in the North Island. Yep. And then went back to school and studied winemaking.
And how long did that take?
That was like full-time for a year.
Right.
So, which is pretty intense. I managed a vineyard at the same time. Before it started, I was there a little bit early, so I did vintage for Montana Wines.
Okay.
In the large factory there.
Yeah, sure.
My job was inoculation.
Right.
So
the infector.
So all I did all day was mix up yeast.
Wow.
And it's funny because it was such a big complex that it took 9,000 litres of water to get it to one tank on the other side of the winery.
What?
So I pumped 9,000 litres of water through to clear the lines. I put the 200 litres of yeast culture through, and then the 9,000 litres to clear it through. It was insane.
And you're on walkie-talkies to someone at the other end. Yeah.
It was insane.
Waiting it to look like.
But it was exciting. I learned a lot. It was fun. But what I really fell in love with was Shiraz at the time out of McLaren Vale.
Right.
Like Tatticella was doing all those really cool, interesting wines, and I was like, wow, these are rad. So when I finished studying, I was like, right, let's go back to Australia. There's no opportunity. There wasn't really any jobs in New Zealand unless I wanted to move down south and make Sauvignon Blanc. Sure. I was like, I wasn't really interested in that. Yeah. So we moved to McLaren Vale.
And how did that decision go down with Kirsty?
Oh, awesome. She was into it. She was like, there's not enough work. She wasn't really enjoying a job. She was at accident and emergency in Gisborne Hospital, so it was a pretty fucking heavy scene. Yeah. There's one story one night where some guys in one of the local gangs had tried to get their other mate to buy the beers. Yeah. And he wouldn't give the money over, so they smashed his head in with a hammer. Oh, God. So Kirsty had him in A&E kind of brain dead wandering around. She's like, fuck this, I need to get out of here. Yeah. I don't want to be here doing this. So,
So McLaren Vale, the decision, did you have a job before?
no,
Just thought get amongst it.
Moved to Adelaide.
Yeah.
We thought maybe the Barossa, and then we thought McLaren Vale. I didn't want to live in the Barossa; it was too far away. There wasn't enough kind of nightlife or enough things happening.
Sure.
So Kirsty took a job at Flinders Hospital,
Okay.
and I could just drive to McLaren Vale every day.
Great. And when you were driving there, where was you working first?
So first job I took was with Wira
Right.
straight away.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that was a vintage position, or?
No, it was outside of vintage. So
Yep.
it was a cellar hands, which turned into cellar manager, assistant winemaker.
Great.
So
That place is pretty big, isn't it?
yeah, it was maybe 2,000, 3,000 tons.
Right.
So in the scheme of things, not very big. It's still seen as, I know Darrenberg still see themselves as a boutique winery. So
Right. And they're bigger again, are they?
no, they're smaller than Darrenberg.
Oh, okay.
Or similar size. But it was great. I learned so much. And we had some really, and I employed a few friends of mine from New Zealand to come and do harvest. One of them was a friend of mine, Phil Barber, that I'd studied with, and then he had gone and worked in California.
Right.
And I said, look, I need to do a California vintage. So he got me a job working for Paul Hobbs in Russian River.
Oh, cool.
So from there, Jesus, getting on.
Yeah.
Fuck, we've done heaps of stuff, eh? Tell I'm getting old now.
Yeah, this is my 95th vintage.
Yeah, it's fucking bizarre, isn't it? Well, yeah, so I went to California for a vintage. I stayed there a little bit longer than I should have. My boss at Wira was like, come back, you need to come back. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then the US were like, we can offer you a position. I was like, all right, well, I need to go home, sort out some things. And I got home and then I think I went straight into harvest again. So, because, I left California in November.
Yeah.
And then, was home for a little bit, then went into harvest. Did harvest. California offered me a job to go to Argentina.
Really? I didn't know any of this.
To set up a new winery in Argentina for them. So
That was in Mendoza? Or?
Yeah, they had a really big project going ahead in Mendoza.
Cool.
And Luján de Cuyo for a project called Vinacobos.
Okay. And that's south, isn't it, of Mendoza? Is that right?
It's closer. I don't know if it's south. It always felt kind of east to me, but
Right.
But it's the Andes. The winery was to basically looking north, I thought, and then out to the east was the Andes.
Yeah, cool.
But it was a pretty amazing place. It was bizarre. Like, I didn't get paid.
Right.
I didn't get paid. I'd been there for 6 months. I hadn't been paid.
That was an oversight.
They'd give me like a couple of $100.
Yeah.
They said, we're still sorting out your visa. We can't really pay you properly. So I was ringing my boss in California saying, dude, I haven't been paid. And they're like, what? Right, we'll get onto this. We'll get it sorted. And, and then another couple of weeks would go by and they'd drip feed me a bit of money. And and I was supposed to be there for a 2-year contract. And after I'd been there for that 6 months, Kirsty came out.
Yep.
And she tried to get a job as a nurse, and she said, oh, mate, this is chaotic.
Right.
And then she was stuck out in the middle of nowhere while I was working like 13, 14, 15 hours a day. And she said, oh, mate, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So...
and then you came back?
Came back to
Adelaide.
New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then we were mucking around trying to find a job. We almost brought this kind of real rickety vineyard property in Martinborough.
Yep.
And again, my friend Phil said, man, Adelaide was awesome. Why don't you guys go back to Adelaide? I loved hanging out with you guys over there. And the next day, Kirsty and I were like, yeah, fuck it, let's just go back to Adelaide. So I came back here and I took a job for a small winery up in Lobethal.
Right.
2 months later, we brought a house.
This house?
No. A little cottage in Lobethal. And then I worked for him for one vintage. And then he turned out to be a fucking lunatic. And he had a 100-ton license, and I did 300-ton for him.
Oh, wow.
with all VCs, a half-ton press.
Yeah.
Fucking no proper refrigeration. Anything. It was like what I would do is I had my beautiful old girl Mazzy, who a German Sheldie who just passed away.
Yeah.
Just about 15. So she's been kind of with us through all of it. We got married when we were working at Wera.
Right.
We got her like 3 weeks after we got married. So when we went to Argentina, the dog breeder said, "Look, I'll take her back for a year, but after a year, you got to rehouse it." And
Right.
we got back inside the year. Mazzy was so excited to see us. And they said, "Oh, look, while Mazzy's been here, she's met this great friend. His name's Sparks."
Right.
So Kirsty's like, "Oh, we can't have another dog."
Oh,
I just fucking rocked up with this dog.
nice.
And she's like, "What are we going to do with 2 dogs?" and it worked out the best thing because they were best buddies.
Yep.
When you leave the dogs at home, they can entertain each other. And they just came to work with me every day anyway, so it was fine.
Sure.
But so we I took that job, and then that guy was crazy. So I was like, "Oh, fuck it, I'm sick of wine." So I went and worked for Wine Equip
Really?
for 6 or 8 months.
Selling winery equipment.
Winery equipment,
additives and stuff.
which I learned a shitload of
Yeah.
stuff while I was there. But also it put me in the position to buy a couple of tanks,
Yeah.
buy a pump, and buy all the bits and pieces. And another friend of mine had a winery just down the road, so I could press my grapes there. I rented a space behind the Loberthal Beer House,
Right.
and I did the second vintage of BK wines.
And what year was that?
That was 08.
Wow.
So 07, I made 2 barrels of Pinot Noir while I was working for that other guy.
Sure.
And we kind of, we've always taken the logo established in 2007, but it was only two barrels of
2
Pinot.
barrels. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's establishing something.
But then, the 08, while I was working for Wine Equip, we did 4 tons. So 1 ton of Gris, 1 ton of Pinot, 1 ton of Chardonnay, 1 ton of Syrah.
Wow.
And
Big time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thought it. And then the next year after that, this guy approached me about building a new winery over at Neon.
Right. Is that far from here?
So it's kind of over by Mount Barker.
Okay.
So out the other side of the hills there, kind of just down the road, kind of 5 minutes down the road from where Naringa is.
Yeah, cool.
And there, they wanted to build a 3,000-ton winery.
Right.
And they said that's what the Adelaide Hills needs. And I was just like, Adelaide Hills does not need a 3,000-ton winery. So I managed to get them to size it, and we were going to try and build it in 4 stages. So the first stage was like a 200-ton stage.
Sure.
And then I looked for an assistant winemaker from the course that I'd studied in New Zealand. So friend Blair Guthrie came and worked for me as the assistant. And we did a couple of 100-ton there.
Nice.
The first year, and it was insane, man. We just...
In what way?
Just the volume coming in,
Right.
we were kind of underestimated what we're going to work, and we're taking fruit from multiple different regions, and I was trying to emulate the equipment and the style and the way we'd made wine in California.
Yep.
But we're taking like machine harvested fruit from Langhorne Creek.
Sure.
And we took some really good fruit from the hills. They had a beautiful Sauvignon Blanc vineyard there. And we realised, I realised pretty quickly when I'd made like 9 cuvées, close to 300 tons worth of grapes, they had no marketing, they had no
Right. brand,
they had not thought about it. So one of the business partners, who was supposed to be head of marketing, I said, what's the plan? And he said, don't worry, you just focus on winemaking, I'll worry about the marketing. So I kept hammering him about it, saying
Because you had to bottle the stuff.
Yeah. And he was actually an 82-year-old real estate agent who was supposed to be in charge of marketing.
Wow.
And I managed to go to a meeting and get it out of him what was the business plan. And it was to make a placemat that we were going to take all over town.
Right.
And that's what how we were going to market the wines.
And what, restaurants would have the placemat on the table?
That was
Right.
the extent of it.
Did it work?
We never got to that stage.
Oh, right.
So I was like, right, I've got to think of a name. So I called it Mayhem and Co.
Right.
Because that's exactly what it was.
Sure.
And so we put this brand together called Mayhem and Co. I just went on to 99 Designs,
Yep.
gave them the concept, and they kind of put the label together. And then I just managed to bottle all this wine, and then I was like, fuck, we need to employ and invest in a marketing person. So we invested into a marketing person, started to really get the ball rolling. It turned out that the business partner sold 20 litres of wine total to the local golf club.
That's pretty good.
But it also turned out that every time he wrote my check for wages, he wrote himself one.
Right.
And he hadn't invested any money into the business at all. So I had to tell the other business partner this is what had happened. So you can imagine, and which is supposed to be his best mate.
Yeah, no.
So there was it was just getting more and more poisonous.
Yep.
And then the other guy just said oh, I need to sell this. The good thing is that I'd continued to be doing BK wines inside,
Sure.
and then I always made sure it was in my contract that I could continue to make my own wines.
And you were doing
my
crushing
own
them
way.
there at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful winery.
And is BK Brendon Keys or is it Brendon and Kirsty?
It's both.
Right.
I've always been BK.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
yeah, cool.
it's Brendon and Kirsty.
Yeah. She's not here, but she will listen to this one day. So.
No, it doesn't matter. She kind of doesn't want it sometimes. She's like,
Yep.
don't say that. But yeah, it is. It's 100% her and I.
Cool.
None of this works without each other.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's the way.
She's pretty good at doing all the shit stuff in the background.
Yep.
She's definitely better at chasing debt than I am.
Yes. Yeah.
It's good cop, bad cop.
That's good, mate. Don't let all your secrets out.
But no, she's definitely a big part of it, and it's we've been together this year, I think 22 years.
Wow.
So
Wow.
so we can tell each other when we're dickheads and
Yep.
we piss each other off, but I think we're pretty open with conversation about that stuff, and I think you need to be.
Yeah.
Especially because we work really well together, but when you're in a working relationship like that, you need to have that open dialogue.
Oh, absolutely.
Otherwise,
just in relationships, you just keep talking.
It just applies pressure,
Yeah.
which is unnecessary. And as well as I do, it's just a stressful industry.
Yep. Lots of points of failure. That's for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of people with the idea of how it works, but no idea
Of how it really works.
works. Yeah. So from that situation. One of the guys and one of the other guys I'd been making wine for said, look, let's do this other project. And I said, what
was the other project? Sorry.
So there was another guy I don't really want to talk about.
Okay.
Another brand called...
but the other project was Leave Mayhem and Co.
Yeah, because they put the winery on the market.
Right.
And then I was like, what am I going to do now?
Sure.
So
and at that time, you were selling BK wines that you'd made.
Yeah.
Yourself.
So I continued to. I started to find distribution, a bit of export and stuff like that. Still, really hadn't taken a wage from BK Wines. Mm-hmm. I think it was year 7. I took a wage.
Yeah. Wow.
But so then we rustled together some money with these other two guys, purchased some equipment, and started renting a shed to make our wines over at Revenere with Peter Lesky.
Sure.
And Taris was there at the time. I just started making the wines there. And it went on, it was doing all right. And then the other guys kind of, one didn't have any idea about wine whatsoever. Again, liked the idea of it.
Sure.
The other one, similar. So 2015, when did we buy this place? So first harvest here was 2017.
Wow. That's a cool little shed you've got down there.
Yeah, it's
big skate ramp, all sorts of stuff happening. How many skateboards are down there? How many skateboard decks?
Oh, there's a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's again, I've worked in wineries and it's a sterile lab or a sterile environment. And I'm like, fuck, I never drink wine in this environment. Why am I trying to work in this environment?
Yep.
So I wanted to, when we got to do our own project here, it was like, right, this is how I want it to be.
Sure.
I like to drink wine with loud music. I like it to feel cozy. Tactile. It needs to be kind of visually stimulating. I think all those things is, and when we first start winemaking, and I've only kind of realised this in like 2018 vintage. You're trying to understand what great wine is. I was lucky enough along the way to pick up some pretty awesome vineyards through contract winemaking for other people.
Right.
I kind of picked the bits and pieces out that I really like. Chardonnay vineyard, I've had that was that 2008 vintage.
Right.
So I've had that vineyard since then.
And what's that wine called?
That's called Swaby.
Yes. Yep.
So I've had that vineyard ever since. 2010, Jeff Gower came to me and said, did you want to make Pinot Noir from my vineyard? So I've had that since then.
Great.
So that's the Gower.
That's the Gower, yep.
So I've continued with that vineyard. And there hasn't really been a lot of change in between. I've pretty much stuck with the same growers, because I also believe that if you're swapping and changing, you're not really understanding the site, the place. You're constantly trying to readapt for the new grapes rather than kind of understanding or getting better at what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Mother Nature, as you know, throws so much at us anyway. So imagine trying to see, some sort of consistency within your brand. If you're constantly changing, then you have to do that with your winemaking rather than letting the vineyard kind of do its own thing.
And making incremental improvements and then learning from the season. Yeah, coming from the same baseline. So working in all the big places. I mean, your winemaking, single site, most of it.
Yeah.
From regions ranging.
It has been from Adelaide Hills and Blewett Springs and McLaren Vale.
Yep.
Now it's 100% Adelaide Hills.
Great.
I kind of think it was starting to lose the story. People, we were always doing about Adelaide Hills, and then there was these wines on the side.
Sure.
And the wines were, I think, were always stunning, beautiful wines. 50-year-old dry grown biodynamic fruit out of Blewett Springs. You can't go wrong.
Yep.
I always think if you can't make Shiraz, you should change fucking jobs. It does it itself, especially with quality of fruit like that.
Yep.
You've just got to be the vessel to get it to the bottle, really.
That's right, shepherd it to where it needs to go.
And it was a good friend's vineyard, and I always loved dealing with them. The relationship was awesome. I just think we're kind of going in a bit of a different direction now with BK Wines as a brand. So
sure. So all the fruits, Adelaide Hills.
Yeah.
Everything's wild fermented?
Yeah. We've never inoculated since we started with BK Wines. I learned Paul Hobbs was a real advocate of making wine that way, so I kind of learnt those techniques from him right from the beginning.
Great, yeah, you mentioned that. So when you were trying to make wine like the California winery, so that
was in that kind of style.
So he was wild ferment. What other sort of things did he?
When I 08 Chardonnay, I used way too much oak, and
Right.
I picked it at like 14 Beaumay.
Nice.
But I guess that was where my passion for Chardonnay started. I just loved Chardonnay, and it's evolved since then.
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
But I think it'll continue to. You never know. In 10 years, you might
Wow.
be back there.
That's it though, and I think what we need to remember is it's agricultural, it's art, but it is still a portion of fashion. Like we're victims of fashion, really, in some ways.
Especially with that new cool hat you gave me.
Yeah, but
That's the coolest hat I've had.
And the wines we drink,
Yep.
it's exactly the same. It's like, oh, what's this? It's new, and it's because I guess we're always searching for something a little bit different, a bit new, and we do take influence from our environment, all the wines we're drinking.
And there's certainly an environment now here in the hills with all of that. A lot of natural producers and
and that for me is a personal journey. I got really sick in 2016, so I've been battling that for the last couple of years, and I'd already used some organic fruit, but I think I've also made a lifestyle change for all of us, for Kirsty, myself, and the boys.
Yep.
I think it's important to know where we're eating our food from. I think a good butcher down the road is really is essential. We're lucky enough to get all of our fruit and vegetables from Naringa.
oh yeah, Aaron's a legend.
We get our veggie basket once a week, and
Nice.
and then now it's my journey to make wines that way and understand them and do it for personal, just as much as I like those wines. And I think I don't know if I don't really want to use the term natural wine because I think it's like saying craft beer. It's just it's just a term that people can catch on to so that they can kind of understand something. But
Sure.
Conventional winemaking, there's a lot of shit conventional wines, but there's also some really great, fantastic conventional wines, as is with natural wine.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
absolutely.
shit natural wine. But, somewhere in the middle is harmony for both styles. So I think we're all we know where we need to go. I think there's a few people making excuses for shit wine at the moment and using that term as the selling point rather than the quality of wine.
Sure. Yeah. No. I agree with you. I think there's an evolution for all of this. It's swung as you're talking. People want to know how their grapes or wine is grown, what goes in it, who makes it, where's it from, and then there's sometimes extremes to that, but then it moves very far away from that. But yeah, the answers are in the middle. Everything's sort of informing everything else.
And my old tutor Anita, told me that it's all about balance. And then as we get a little bit older and a bit wiser, we've realised all of that's about balance.
Yep.
It's balance in the vineyard, it's balance in the winery, but it's balance in your marriage, it's balance in your whole life, it's balance in all of that. You can get wrecked one night, but then you have a few knives off. It's about balance.
Yeah. Yin and yang.
yeah, exactly. And I don't think you can have too much of either. So I don't know. I think it's I think we're pretty lucky about the industry we're in, and I don't know how. I learned a lot, like, as I said, over the last couple of years. Before I was maybe I was trying too hard, or maybe I was a try-hard. I don't know. I was trying to push wines into a direction I thought they wanted to go. And now I'm more confident with the vineyards, and I'm kind of stepping back more and more to let them, because it was like a light bulb moment. I've found great vineyards, a great fruit. So why am I trying to manipulate it with oak and try and manipulate the fermentation for temperature and stuff.
Sure.
And try and pick it really early because I'm stressing out about pH.
Yep.
Now I'm like, okay, pH is a bit higher. Makes the wines a bit more open when they're young. They don't seem to deteriorate any quicker.
Sure.
But it's again, it's what we're taught.
Yeah, that's right.
Your mindset is.
But that's part of it. You need to know. I think you need to know the rules before you can bend them. And I think
yeah, definitely. So
yeah, cool. So you make it like lots of different styles. What was the first year you were doing? The Pet Nat? Is it Pet Nat yours or just Petit Natural? What's the...
Yeah, Petit Natural. Yeah. I think it might have been 13.
Yep.
13 was the first vintage. I drank 14 and 15 in Japan last week.
Oh, nice.
They were pretty damn cloudy, but they seem to hold up really well. There's still fruit profile there, and that lees has kind of built texture, and I guess it's scavenging a bit of oxygen along the way as well.
Sure. And has your technique changed over time?
Rapidly.
Right.
And massively. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, because it is such a unpredictable product.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to eliminate some of those parts of it.
Yep.
But I think 18 vintage we disgorged.
Right.
Was just kind of a cloudy, rough disgorge.
You did it here yourself?
No.
Yep.
No. So, okay. So I'm a believer in get it to kind of where I like with a sugar level and then cool it down.
Sure.
I sent the samples down to the AWRI and they sent it back and told me it was 15 grams.
Right.
Like, bang, let's cool it down, start bottling.
Ooh.
So I started bottling because I'd already set up that day knowing, right, we're going to, hopefully it's ready to go. And 2 days later, they sent back to me and said, oh, sorry, we gave you a wrong number. You actually had 25 grams of sugar in there.
Ooh, okay. So you're looking at more sort of Champagne Cremant levels, 4 or 5 atmospheres. Yeah.
So I think it was 4.5 bar. I'm not 100% sure. But the bottles I was using were only for 4.
Oh, no.
So I was lucky it hadn't exploded.
Yep.
But we had to open them all and drop a bit of lees out.
Sure.
And then just recap them.
Great.
But so this year, I think we're pretty good.
Okay, nice.
We're back with it kind of being pretty rough rack, pretty cloudy, but cold stabilised. So hopefully we shouldn't have any nucleation points in there.
Ooh, those big fancy words. Yeah, we changed ours too. We cold stabilise. We were making ours is just called Pétillant. I mean, we've evolved. We did just bottle a ferment at one point, but now we get through ferment and get through Malo.
Yep.
And cold stabilise, rough cold stabilise.
Yep.
So you just put them outside or whatever. And then meanwhile we've frozen juice, and then we add the juice back at the level we want.
Yeah.
And then rebottle it, or just bottle it, and that's it. We don't riddle or disgorge. And because we're dealing with clear juice, we don't get as much deposit, so we don't have to disgorge.
Yeah.
But there's not as much food in there, and the yeast really struggle.
Yeah.
And I think last year's took 4 or 5 months to ferment.
I had a real stinky one last year too. It got really reductive.
Right.
Similarly, I think it had too much sugar. Not enough food.
Oh, okay. Okay. What do you do in that situation?
Just hope it goes away.
Yeah, sure.
I don't mind reduction. I'm a fan of reduction in my wines because I always think reduction is better than aldehyde.
True. Reduction can also protect from oxygen as well.
Exactly. That's what and I like the wines to be a little bit shy. Mm-hmm. You kind of open up and there's not much to there, and then you got to hold on to them and look at them, and throughout the bottle of wine you start to more and more, and then it just starts to really show itself and the bottle's kind of finished. Yeah. You're always like, fuck. So you're always on that kind of...
So you then get everyone to buy another bottle.
Yeah, well, you're always on that kind of... You're a little bit pissed off. Like, fuck, I wish that bottle was bigger, or I just want a bit more. And it kind of sits in your mind. You're always like, oh, okay, I want to have that again.
Sure. Yeah, I guess you see it evolving in the glass. So at the beginning, let's say 2008, you had the 4 varieties that you, and then so 2009, were you selling those to distributors, or were you going out in any markets yourself?
No, we did it all ourselves.
Right. So just knock on doors and then you started in Adelaide. And
and that was so funny because you forget about it now. You were so excited just to sell your booze, you'd sell it to anybody.
Yeah, at any price.
And then you started realising that most of the people that were buying it were because no one else would supply them.
Oh, right, nice.
So they keep taking it. You're like, oh, sweet, they love it. And then you hadn't been paid for any of it, and you're like, oh, fuck, that's why. No one else would supply them anymore because their debt was so.
Sure.
Yeah. So and you have these little goals. You want to get into this market, and I think as I've kind of learnt, you don't really push it, but if you apply pressure to certain things, eventually it'll come to fruition.
Right.
So, but I always remember selling it to East End sellers was like, yes,
doing high fives.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you've made it because those guys have been. That was one of the places in Adelaide you went for wine.
Still is.
If you went in there and Gus liked your wines, you'd made the big time. In all reality, it didn't really change much. I still wasn't making a wage.
Sure, yeah. No, it does. So 7 years till you made a wage. Was there any point that you'd gone out somewhere, not for work, say a restaurant or a bottle store, and you've seen someone either pick your wine up or have it served at the table? I know it would have happened, but is there any of the early points that you were just like, look at that, that's ours?
Yeah, I can't. There definitely was. I just can't remember one right now.
Yeah.
Shit. It's so funny.
Everyone was buying it. It was just such a blur. Yeah.
Isn't it? Wow. No, they weren't. It was such a challenge.
Yeah.
We somewhere in there we tried to do a cellar door.
Really? Where? Here?
Yeah. No. And so when I set up the guys with Mayhem and Co.
Yep.
Because we didn't have a lot of distribution over in Charleston, just down the road from our house, we rented a cellar door over there, and it was an old chocolate factory, and the guy just kind of sat around, ate chocolate and watched porn. So it was pretty weird going in there.
Yeah.
But we cleaned it out.
Got rid of him?
Well, because he owned the building.
Oh, right.
So we cleaned it out, did it all up, and it was awesome. And then once we did it all up, the fucker put it on the market.
Yeah.
And this girl, Nikki, she wanted to set it up as like a knick-knack kind of clothing store, but she didn't want us not to be there. She said, let's go 50-50.
Right, so half knickknacks, half wines.
Yeah, which is cool because we had a lot of cool events there. We had the turntables set up there. Yep. It was great, and it had a really big lawn. It was really good. But then we had Archer, and then Kirsty was pregnant with Remy, and we were spending every weekend there. Great. We're selling wine direct. But that's the point in time we decided we needed to find distribution.
Sure.
That's my phone will stop in a sec.
Oh, it's your phone. I thought someone was tapping drumsticks.
But, and it was a business because we weren't making a lot of money, and we're like, we've got to give up like 30%.
Yeah, yep.
And then you're like, right, okay, for the next, few years, see how it goes. Give up 30% so we can spend time with the kids. So we and her fucking hunter gumboots and whatever else was slowly encroaching more and more. And when we started to have events, it was harder and harder. So it was all things were leading for that to happen.
Yeah, I think it's evolving too. For a longest time, I was doing all the sales in Perth, and then when we've only had a wholesaler for 2 years now, and I was like, we can't give up the 30%, we need it to keep going if we're not making profit, whatever. And pretty soon it was obvious that I was really bad at what I was doing for all those years, and we didn't lose 30% at all.
No. Well, I think that's because you've got so many balls in the air at all times. You're like, oh shit, I got to get that, I got to do this, got to do that, and then we are trying to maintain a good family life. You know, I got my children because I want to spend time with them. I have my wife because I want to spend time with her.
Well, I had kids mainly for pruners. They're a little bit cheaper.
Eventually,
yeah.
Eventually,
No, that's right. You do, and you know the idea of where the places that we live, you know, in the country, and it's a great place to bring up a family.
Yeah,
yeah.
But that 30% thing is hard. I've also realised that that I'm probably not that good at selling BK wines in Adelaide, which we're doing again now.
Really?
Yeah. So we went back to doing it ourselves because I thought now. You know, because at one stage I was making wine for 7 brands.
Oh, okay.
So we just do BK wines at home now. I make some bubbles for one other person and a couple of bits and pieces for them, but it's not really taking any attention away from what I do.
Sure.
And then I was like, well, you know, we're just doing the small amount of wine at home. Maybe I'll have more time to go out and sell it. I'm definitely spending more time on the road again, which I really enjoy, the travel side of it.
That's great.
But as far as I'm not really finding any new accounts in Adelaide.
Right.
I just go down
and go to the Exeter, pull up a pint, and then
I just go to the same people all the time, and I go, "Oh, please take my wine."
Nice.
So
at least it's only half an hour or 20 minutes down the road.
25 minutes, which is awesome.
3 hours from Perth.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
Yeah, I used to do day trips all the time, and I had the whole thing nailed. I'd leave at 6:45, so by the time I hit the freeway, the peak hour was gone.
Yeah,
and then. You know, hit your first appointment at 10 when someone wants to see you. And then at about sort of 2:45 before the school run, I'd hit the highway south. So I'd only get like smash and grab 4 or 5 appointments.
Yeah.
And I'd be home for dinner.
But that's kind of, I think, 4 or 5 is good for a day. I think, you know, you kind of work out 1 hour each appointment, gives a bit of flexibility if somebody else wants to see something or you want to spend a bit longer somewhere. And then you kind of stay focused. I think any more than that, you lose it a bit.
Yeah. Record's 11 that killed me.
Oh, man. I tasted in Chicago. I'd miss my flights. I'd miss my whole day. And then the next day they had me to try and do all the same appointments that I'd missed, plus that day's appointment. I think I arrived at like 7 in the morning. They said, go and have a sleep for half an hour and then let's go. And I went, and the last appointment was 11:30 at night.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh, not again. But Chicago in the summertime, man, what a beautiful place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's got a good vibe too.
Yeah. So where to from here? You so this beautiful property you've got now in Basket Range of the winery in the house, is there space to plant some vines?
So if I've looked at spacing. I'll probably do 2 metre rows with 1 metre spacings. The variety changes daily.
Right, what's the latest? Muller Thurgow.
Well, just about. When we were in Alsace a couple of years ago, when I walked away from there, the wines I find the most exciting was Pinot Blanc.
Right.
So, and it's pretty early ripening. It's pretty cool up here, so we could probably get away with it. I just don't know how thick-skinned it is.
Right.
Pinot Blanc would be kind of cool.
And you'd make a dry still white?
Still white, probably, you know, concrete egg for 10 months. That would be kind of the style. Again, kind of to show purity of fruit. But then again, I learned a lot this year. So my good friend Bastien, he's got Clandestino wines in Saint Remy, Provence. I wanted, so Bastien's had an awesome story. Bastien worked for me at that first vintage in Lauberthal with the crazy guy.
Oh, really?
He was a sommelier in Paris at the time. And Bastien can be a bit of, I don't want him to take offence if he ever hears this, but he can be a bit of a conspiracy theorist.
Nice.
So the whole world's against him at all times, but he's a beautiful person, and if I could spend more time with him and his family, with my family there together, it's such a pleasure to go there. But I learned, and I don't know how true this is, but in my mind, I think it's true, and I think it's a good idea, is that we always look at Burgundy and these other regions, and we think, okay, I want to make this Chardonnay that looks like that.
Right.
But there's always multiple varieties inside of those vineyards. So it's never single varietal in that vineyard. And Bastien taught me that in his new vineyards he's just planted, every 10th vine is a different variety.
Right.
And I like the idea, and I think it works. I'm one of these people that I need to put it in action. I can't, for me to understand it. It's like people are like, oh, so why are you fermenting with concrete eggs? Is it trendy? And I'm like, well, no, because I've made Pinot Gris since I was a student. I've made it every single way. And I liked the texture and the weight of barrel ferment, but I don't like the addition of oak.
Yes.
So a friend of mine in California was making Sauvignon Blanc in these concrete eggs, and I was like, cool, purity of fruit, texture, weight, no oak influence.
And some breathability.
Exactly, the permeability is what I think helps with that texture and the weight, and kind of gives it character. So I was like, right, I'm going to buy them for Pinot Gris. So I solely went out and brought them for Pinot Gris.
Really? Wow.
We do the pet nat in it now.
Okay.
So ferment it in there, and then when it's just about finished, blend it and tank before bottling.
Are you just doing full dirty juice into the...
Yep, direct press.
Great.
Yep. Full solids, direct press.
Yeah.
Press trays got big holes in it, so quite often there's a lot of fruit in there as well.
Oh, right, nice.
So I could say it's skin contact as well if I wanted to.
0.5% skin contact.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just take a photo of it and put it on Instagram.
Well, when we got the new vineyard, we'd already had the non-blot eggs, and we were thinking what you were saying about, is it Bastien? Yep. So we had the Chardonnay block, and speaking of Burgundy, well, it was at this big playground when we bought the new vineyard. We couldn't honestly believe the bank would lend us the money to buy it. So we started grafting things in we wanted, and one of the things we did was start grafting Aligoté onto the Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And our Chardonnay is the blend of the two. And we do use the concrete egg again with...
Is that bottle down there for me?
Oh no, it's sold out, that one, mate. No, I'll send you one. Have you not tried it?
No.
Oh, Reggie's got some. We'll get one up to you. But and then dirty juice into barrel, a mixture of old oak. I think the newest oak we have ever had is 3-year-old old white oak. So we sort of buy a couple barrels every year. So just oak and concrete egg. But yeah, the egg's amazing, and it's amazing for texture too. So we've put in, aside from the Chardonnay, like that whole convection current thing, we've made some wines that are so textural that you can't drink them. So, but when you blend them back, at 20%, it just adds a completely different texture than what you'd expect. Yeah. Until you do that bench trial or you blend it, like beautiful slipperiness and weight, but you drink it by yourself and you're just like, it's the grossest thing in the world.
So have you only got non-blot?
We've only got 2 non-blot eggs, yeah.
So I went for Sonoma Stone. I went and visited the factory.
Yep.
And then I brought non-blot.
Yeah, you have one of each, don't you?
One of each, which is amazing because...
Painted cool black as well.
They look completely different.
Yeah.
Every time, the wines, and it's when the components come together, you get a complete wine.
Right.
It's bizarre.
So do you just ferment in them and bring them out and push something else through them? Or?
No, I just ferment in them and leave them there.
Don't
touch them for 10 months.
Right, for the pet nat.
So pet nat comes in a lot earlier than the Pinot Gris. So I put the Pinot Gris about kind of 12 and a half, 13 Beaumet. So by then the pet nat's gone to bottle.
Yep.
And also I pull the Pinot Gris out in December. So I'm trying not to have them empty for too long. Sure. Because what I've learned is now I don't really clean them.
Yep. And they're very hard to clean.
They're really hard to clean. And that tartrate is probably helping to neutralise the pH of that concrete. Yeah, well, I certainly know the first year that we filled them, you almost hear the sizzling from the acid reacting with the concrete. Well, someone told me that the best way to clean them was bicarb soda. Oh, okay. We're just using tartaric. So okay. And you meant to season them at the start, which we did, which I do. But I guess whatever we put in was a lot more acidic than the mixture we'd made up to clean them. Yeah, well, because all of my main ferment now is all in concrete.
Right.
Of
course, you've got those big tanks down there. Yeah.
Those we just kind of make a really strong tartaric mix, and we just pump it over in there, and then just kind of watch the pH.
Oh, right.
And the solution.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to see if it is changing.
If it changes.
Yeah. So then when I think if it's not changing, then we've obviously saturated it.
So what you're trying to do with the eggs is empty them and refill them immediately.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we've got a similar problem. We bought some, I can never say this right, the Quivery. Quivery, Georgian Quivery, and we've buried them in the bush next to, so you've just got the winery and then surrounded by vineyard. And then at the edge of the vineyard is like 6 hectares of, Marri and Jarrah, etc. We've buried these 2 Quivery. I didn't say it right again, did I?
No.
Say it again?
Yeah, I can't. No,
I can't remember it.
Quivery. Yeah.
Okay, that's locked away. So we buried these 2.
A bit more Beaujolais.
Bit more Beaujolais to say Quervy, right? So we've filled some with Pinot Gris and the other ones with Chenin on the spent aligoté skins.
Yep.
We fermented them, locked them up, etc. They're now buried. We've got these glass lids and we, seal them with clay. And we've buried them, and I want to pull them out after 6 months because it's sort of 6 months skin contact.
It's also because you can't fucking wait.
Yeah, I know, but then they sit there for another 6 months in the bush, with perhaps a cover on them. But what's happening you can't clean them. There's no drain at the bottom. They're buried clay vessels. So
it's almost you need to pull them out the day before you're going to refill them.
Well, that is the plan too. Well, that is one of the many plans. We haven't decided. Or we have to pull it out and then just chuck something else in there.
Yeah.
Just a still white or something that's finished and then pull that out and I don't know. Have you had experience leaving stuff in skins for a year?
I kind of pushed, we do Skin and Bones Pinot and the first vintage of that was 300 days on skins.
Right.
And that was an experimentation and me trying to understand by not working the ferment and getting that really fine tannin to create balance. But it was like a really old Barolo at the end.
Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
It was brown.
Yeah.
Beautifully aromatic.
Yep.
Awesome fine tannin line. But, I'm always constantly trying to say to people, don't look at it, just fucking drink it.
Yeah.
Because
it's a mega purple, mate.
But we've come a long way back from there, and it's also I've learned because you need because that was in barrel. Like I handy stemmed the fruit into the barrels
and just drop the berries in.
Yeah,
right.
And then that was
I made Simon do that one year. He wasn't happy.
Yeah, but then from there we I tried doing it on skins and tank. And I found stainless steel being so inert and reductive, it took a long, long time to get that fineness.
Sure.
And now that we have that softness and that permeability in concrete, I can get the same kind of thing after a couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay.
It's awesome because, again...
And then you keep the freshness as well.
This is the most important thing. I find Pinot Noir, especially Adelaide Hills Pinot Noir, becomes very dry red really quickly.
Right.
So I try to do everything to capture aromatics.
Yep.
So I try not to work it because every time you plunge them or pump them over or macerate, you're essentially blowing aromatic off. So we try and we'll do like a 2-minute pump over in the morning and then keep it sealed up.
Sure.
For 7 days.
Yep.
So that's the amount of cap action.
Right.
And again, I'm learning more about oxygen is kind of the enemy because you'll always get if you lose that CO2, that's when they start to go volatile. But if you maintain that CO2 and keep the air away from them completely, it doesn't happen.
Yep. Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
And so I've done the Mazzy, and then it was the Sparks, which became the Syrah and the Grenache, and those are 100% whole bunch Shiraz and Grenache, but I just chucked them in a tank, locked them up, and didn't touch them for 1 month.
Yeah, right.
And that was trying to prove another point because I could never work out. Well, I could work it out, and I've understand it now. In a larger winery, they need to turn the vessel over 3 or 4 times the vintage because of the volume coming in versus the amount of vessels they had. So we had 1 vessel per variety, which is the kind of the joy of having a small winery, as you know. So I'd leave it in there and not touch it, and people would go, "Oh, it'll be really stalky. It'll have no colour." It's completely the opposite.
Right, because you're not shifting it out immediately when it's...
Well, because what you would do, and you get when you work them a lot, you get that really big tannin, those chunky tannins, which are hard, but they seem to collapse real quickly. So, you know, when I first started learning how to make Shiraz, it was 7-day ferment, 2 to 3 punch down or pump overs a day, and then go to barrel for 18 months to try and remove all that hard tannin.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying, yeah.
So by locking it in a tank and not touching it, letting the fruit break down naturally, you get a fine, pretty tannin. So after 10 months in barrel, you can release them into the market. They're really approachable. But that real fine tannin, I think, ages beautifully. So you get the kind of best of both worlds. Primary bright fruit, still approachable, but there's longevity in it. They just get prettier, and that kind of secondary character comes in after time.
So is that the extended maceration stuff that you...
It's extended maceration.
Yep. So then all the tannins combine, they like sort of peak and get super tannic, and then they all combine and sort of level out.
And also if you have whole bunch and you work that a lot, even if you do 10% whole bunch and the rest is stemmed, if you're doing that much cap action on it, you're extracting from the stalk all the time, so they become stalky.
Sure.
But if you leave them and don't touch them, the juice is sitting in the bottom. It's not getting passed through that stalk, so it's not stalky.
Yeah, okay.
So it can look less stalky than a wine that's got 90% whole berry.
Sure.
Destemmed.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, we've played with that extended maceration stuff a bit. We do a Cabernet, you know, it's obviously tannin central, and we air dry the grapes first. So then we're sort of evaporating 30-40% of the water, so that just the concentration factor.
Kind of Amarone style.
Yeah, pretty much. Can't use that though; it's a trademark.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's not like a GI or a protected. It's owned. It's a trademark owned by the Italian government or the OCG or something.
Awesome.
I found that out pretty quick. So
did you try and put the Amarone in cans?
No,
you learned that at the same time?
Yeah, I learned that was not allowed as well. So what we do now with it is, because we're dealing with such immense amounts of tannins, and it can be, again, quite aggressive. So we now, everything's open pot and plunge just to try and extract what, that's across all our reds, sorry. Yeah. And then we hold the wine on air-dried skins locked up for 100 days. And you see, because I think extended maceration really only takes about 40, but what you see is this gigantic amount of tannin all start to combine up into a smoother tannin by the end of it.
Yeah.
But because we've air-dried it, it's like a monster amount of smooth tannin. So it's still quite a big wine.
Yeah.
But what we find with the air drying is it goes through carbonic maceration first, so it starts to trap in a lot of fruit flavours, and then we're just foot crushing. It's all whole bunch. It's pretty crispy by that point. And then so we're sort of trapping this fruit flavour and getting this real intensity because we've dried all that out. And then the tannins, so you can sort of drink it now, but I think it's still going to go for 50 years. Yeah. But the tannins they're all long chain, so there's none of that tight tonic water stuff. Yeah, it's all that sort of 14, 15 chain long stuff. Yeah, just because it wasn't crazy enough, we thought we'd do 100 days.
Yeah. So going back to Bastien.
Oh yeah.
So what Bastien does is, every 10th vine he's planting a different variety. And it's to reduce disease pressure.
Right.
So if you have the same variety and disease comes on, it's like a blanket. But if you've got a
couple of buffers,
vines that are buffers that are either at different stages, either thicker skinned or earlier ripening or later ripening, it's like it's hitting a wall.
Okay.
So it slows it down or contains it to a certain part of the vineyard
until you can get in there and sort it.
Rather than kind of that 24, 48 hour kind of wipe you out kind of thing.
So what's the 10th variety you're putting with your Pinot Blanc?
Petit Manseng, maybe.
Nice. You've thought all this through.
I don't know, maybe Pinot Noir. Maybe some Algodi. I don't know. But then I thought maybe should I do Trousseau?
Sky's the limit.
It's a funny thing right now. I'm not doing Gamay, although I love the variety.
We're drinking it right now, aren't we?
Yeah, and Adelaide Hills is really jumping on it. I think the climate is perfect here to do it. As you know, what wine regions always do, they always find what's the next thing.
Yeah.
And then they want to... It's less and less now. I'm being too harsh by saying that, but it was almost a broadacre farming approach. Like what is new? Let's all do that. I don't. As you've seen just from driving around here, I think the beauty and what's going to make the Adelaide Hills a place to remember is the diversity, not the single variety.
Sure.
Because it's such a diverse environment, climate, It's such a long wine region. It goes all the way down to McLaren Vale and then finishes at Eden Valley.
Yeah.
So
and lots of different heights and undulations,
types, altitudes, little pockets, and with climate change, whether Trump thinks it's real or not, I feel it's very much fucking real.
And how do you see that? Do you see it as warmer in what you're trying to pick? Because I asked that because the way that I see changes, like in Margaret River from 20-something years, is that we're getting more extreme events.
Extreme is what it is.
Yeah, whether it's, more cyclones moving down south and getting more rain where we are in like out of seasonal stuff, or we got a frost this year. We're 4 k's from the ocean. We got a frost in the last week of November. So the week before summer, and frosts in growing season in Margaret was very rare, and to get it then, it's crazy.
Yeah, we can get them here kind of late spring,
right?
Which can always be a worry, but. More of the sites we're dealing up here with are pretty steep now, so that seems to be less of a problem.
Sure.
But I agree, it's more the extremes. So therefore, do we need to have vineyards with varieties that are more flexible, more adaptable? There's also another theory about why we have the main varieties we do. Is that because the French government was in cahoots with the herbicide, insecticide companies?
Right.
So a lot of the varieties they planted were dependent upon herbicide and insecticide.
Here?
In France.
Oh, right.
So
is this Bastian talking to you?
Yeah. You're like,
right.
no. So the noble varieties are all very... disease pressure is high in them, and a lot of some of these other varieties like what is it called, Lambrusca.
Really, is that tough?
Lambrusca, no, not Lambrusco.
Oh, right.
Lambrusca is kind of like the non-Vitis vinifera.
Sure.
So they were told that those varieties produced too much methanol, so they were poisonous to drink.
Right.
So that's why those varieties disappeared.
There you go. Maybe you should be planting some Vitis Lambrusca, is it?
Fuck, it's a lot of shit.
Right.
But
that's a great one.
Yeah, it's a bit like why there's no Gamay in Burgundy.
What's that one? Is that another?
Whoever was, whatever, I don't
Lord
know.
Gamay.
Is it a king? I don't know. Was it King of Burgundy or
maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Whatever he said, it was a peasant's grape and banned it from Burgundy.
Right.
So that's why it's hard to find Gamay.
Okay.
And in saying that, I in 2014 I did a collaboration with Andrew Nielsen, an English Australian guy who's a Burgundy producer, and we got 2-ton of 90-year-old biodynamic Gamay from Saint-Aubin
Right.
in the Côte d'Or.
But you had to pay that, cash behind the pub in a paper bag.
It was funny actually. I saw Andrew at Rootstock and said, "Can we do it?" And he's like, "Yeah, it sounded like a great idea." Whatever number of drinks we'd had,
Yeah.
And then I just kind of applied a bit of pressure and followed it through, and it was going to be too hard and too unpredictable to do Pinot Noir.
Right.
And this Gamay came up, so I was like, "Wow, cool! I kind of like that variety. Let's go for it."
So you have made it?
Yeah, I did it in 14, and what we did was, so I helped Andrew. We fermented it on skins for a month, pressed it off, and shipped it to Australia. And matured it in my barrels here and bottled it here.
Wow.
And released it.
Yep.
And it was because the nature of the industry, there's so much history and so much reading. So we've all read about it. We've all drunk the wines, but we've never experienced making wine there. And, multiple vintages here, I was like, well, what's it like to actually make wine in Burgundy? I wanted to kind of understand the politics, the chemistry, the climate, the people, how you went about it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the only way to do it.
Nice.
And I feel better for doing it. I kind of want to do a few more of these kind of projects.
Yep. Where's next?
Fuck, I don't know.
Maybe back in that Val d'Isere, somewhere around there.
Yeah, or maybe. Yeah, I thought about that too. A lot of Gamay around there too.
Yeah.
But then I thought maybe Barolo. I'd like to make Nebbiolo in the Adelaide Hills, I think.
And the idea is vinify it there again, but bring it back as mature it here.
So, because I was paranoid, I shipped it door to door at 13 degrees.
Oh, wow. Nice.
That kind of cost more than the fruit. So it was definitely a passion project rather than for any monetary value whatsoever.
No, and how did it turn out?
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
Cool.
It's pretty fine, pretty lean year.
Yep.
But I think it's held together. Like I drank a bottle just recently and it looks really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know how we end up doing these things. We do though, don't we?
Yeah, sort of get caught into some sort of new project. Keeps it interesting. Oh, that's cool, mate. So, nice. The Pinot Blanc vineyard. Can you get those cuttings here?
I think we can.
Yeah, cool.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked at clonal material or what the quality of it is. But then, I'm like, fuck, I love Poussard. I should do it with Poussard because I'm kind of on that little bit of that kind of Jura train at the moment.
Oh, nice. I can sell you some cheap Albarino, which is really Sauvignon if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, that's it's funny. I like it's only this year that I've really understood the wine I've been making. I've done it on skins since 2013, Sauvignon, because it's a thick skin variety, and I think if you direct pressed it would be pretty an uninteresting wine.
Sure.
Kind
makes
of
sense.
Uni Blanc kind of generic kind of white wine. But what I also learned, and it was only looking at the 17 to 18 release, if it had been Albarino, 17 would have been a great Albarino.
Yeah, right.
And 18 now, look to me, looks more Sauvignon as we know it, as place of reference being the Jura.
Sure.
And that kind of slightly aldehydic, oxidized. And again, to say that that's a weird statement because it's oxidative winemaking, not oxidized wine.
Yep.
That kind of makes sense.
Do you have a floor on?
No. We released our second vintage of Floor as its own separate wine. But the 18 Sauvignon as it is not, there's no floor on it. We keep that topped.
Yep. Cool.
But again, I think me thinking I want to preserve it and look after it. So using that kind of phenolic weight from skin contact is helping to kind of protect it.
Yeah. Yep. The antioxidants.
Yeah. And in a weird kind of way, but yeah, I think Sauvignon's pretty cool. I think it's a shame it was a knee-jerk reaction that it was ripped out.
Right.
I think Australia could have started to understand Sauvignon as a variety sooner rather than later, if people had pursued. But again, was Albarino a larger market variety that appealed to more people, kind of thing?
Yeah, I wonder that too. And like from a marketing perspective, there was sort of a big rise of Tempranillo, to a certain extent Touriga Nacional, and then there was sort of not many whites to go with it. So maybe that was the little pigeon pair that went with it. You can have, here's my Tempranillo, it's my Spanish white and my Spanish red.
Okay, I'd never thought of that. I find most Australian Tempranillo looks very Australian.
Yep.
You know, that real kind of punchy fruit that's not shy, and we can't shy away from either.
Sure. Too much sunshine.
Yes, exactly. You know, and I think that's always a good conversation about why you pick your grapes and when you pick your grapes.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
that's what I'm learning now. We've put some, some Sangiovese decent clones in, and I do remember making a Sangiovese in a winery, and there was this, back in conventional days, and there's all this tannin going in with it. You know, you're like, okay, you're building your structure. That's what it says on the cellar sheet that I was handed. So
that's what it says on the back of the bag.
Yeah. You just you get your instructions from the winemaker and you mix it up and you chuck it in. And then, so to me, Sangiovese, from trying it from these wineries, was like, okay, sure, it's just like a structured red with a slightly different flavour profile. But now playing with it, we're doing a little bit of foot crushing and all open pots, and obviously no ads where we are. And it's the tannins that's, there's great flavours, licking the warm bricks or whatever, but it's the tannins and the structure and those that makes that wine. Yeah. And I'm not saying that all Tempranillo, what you're talking about that's the reason why, but I think letting that there are varieties that have varietal character that can be expressed if you're not trying to hide it between, like underneath other things.
Yeah, I think I took an approach and I made it a few years ago, and it was like to handle it as oxidatively as I could, just kind of soften and kind of lose that primary fruit and try and make it more kind of Rioja, because I always think they handle things pretty oxidatively. So I think we can do that.
Go for Siesta.
Yeah, I'll go for Siesta, kind of leave it kind of open ferment, long time on skins, not plunging too much, and letting that kind of Adelaide Hills build in the cap before we kind of pressed it off. Yeah. So that it would use, as a softening agent. But that's all fun.
Nice. Well, thanks, mate. Thanks for the chat. Anything? So I guess people can find you no Celador anymore, but Instagram's at BK Wines.
Yeah, and we got a new website. So
have you?
Now we should sell some
new skateboard decks too.
Fucking sell some shit.
Yeah, do it.
Some new skateboard decks
for all the 7 people that end up downloading this. Yeah,
doesn't matter though, man.
No, it's all good. It's just good to sit down and chat. And I don't get to see anyone as like we used to.
I know, and it's always good to drink a bottle of Foyard anyway.
Thanks, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.
Cheers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with BK of BK Wines. Please head to the website, realwinepeople.com, where you'll find show notes and links to what we spoke about. I hope everyone has a great Christmas. There should be another episode dropping just before the new year, and we'll be speaking to you soon. Cheers.